heart, healing for your home. The Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant, and thankful that you are with us today. Hey, shout out to our friends in other countries that listen to us. We've had a big uptick in, is that a good word? Is that the right word? Uptick?
In the international
international world. Mm-hmm. So for those of you that are overseas and you listen to us, thank you. And send us a note on Facebook or Instagram or however you communicate with us, and let us know where you're listening from, because that's fun to be able to see that we have listeners worldwide. So that's a lot of fun to hear that our message of hope for marriages is going worldwide.
Yeah, that's awesome. You think they can understand our Southern accents?
I don't know. We'll lay it on really thick for y'all so you can laugh a little harder today.
I had a thought. Okay, this is random. Sorry. You know how when I listen to audiobooks, I listen to them on 1.25, and we've had people not a bunch of people, but we've had a couple of people tell us that they can listen to you on 1.25 and sometimes even 1.5, but not me, because I talk faster.
Oh, I thought it was the opposite.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
I don't know.
Okay, you remember how when you said nobody listens? Oh, wait, sorry, that was me. That said nobody listens to us at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then they do. Let's see if people will let us know if they listen to us on 1.25 speed.
I mean, I'm sure they do. Like, I listen, it's not even, I think now Apple Podcasts, 1.25 is not an option. I think it's 1.3. I listen to every single podcast on 1.3.
Well, on Audible, you can listen to it on 1.25, 1.3, 1.35, all of those options.
I mean, you can go above 1.3, I think, for Apple Podcasts, but I think 1.3 is the next from just normal. You can slow it down too.
And then
so if you guys need to slow us down when we're talking really, really fast like this, just slow us down a little bit. And then
because my bestie listens to our polos on 1.5. And I'm like, on 2.
I hear you doing that polo stuff sometimes on fast. And I'm like, how do you, I can't.
I can listen on 1.5, but not 2. It just, it sounds like a chipmunk talking.
Yeah, I have to. 1.3 is about. I mean, that's what I listen to.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to you say, "Hello, folks," and like that's kind of slow.
I think it used to be 1.25. I don't know why. That's weird, right? They just one day said,
"No more one."
It's not fast enough. Let's bump it up a little bit. Let's get these people.
And then it's gonna go.
Let's get these people going. This morning. Hey, good morning for those of you that listen at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Good morning.
But it is not 5 o'clock in the morning for these overseas people.
No. Oh, it's not.
Some of them all the way around the world.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All right, so let's get into it.
I'm so excited about this topic
I'm sure that there's people going, are we going to talk about something
it's going to be a good one.
That will be helpful. So this topic came about because Heather... this is Heather's suggestion, so if it's not good, blame her. But we started several weeks ago, and actually we got to go live a couple of times when we were in Atlanta for some retreats and intensives and stuff, and they've been in a series basically on Joshua.
Yeah.
And it started early in the year. So if you're familiar with Passion City Church and Louis Giglio.
February 6th was the first sermon. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds, hey, you know, it's your thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so February 6th-ish.
You suck.
No, you're probably right.
Okay.
You're probably right. I have no idea, to be real honest. But it starts with Joshua, and it's just a study through that. And it's been really, really good, but it's brought up some marriage topics that we've kind of talked about just on our own. And
they weren't marriage topics for him.
No, not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure he has probably mentioned marriage during his...
But I just take almost every message we listen to, and I'm like, how can I apply that to me? I mean, obviously that's the first thing. How can it change me? And then I always am like, how can we apply that to marriages? Because it's just, I mean, so many broad topics that are like, hey, this can change your life. It also, because of that, can change your marriage because you can only worry about you. And so as I think, oh, this is going to change me, then it can't help but change our marriage.
So can I jump in real quick and just say this? There's people out there, I think, that they look at our marriage and they want to know, how do you get to a place where we are, regardless of our past, but just the health of our marriage right now. And we're not perfect. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of things that we still work on. But I think that people want to know, so they come to us. We do marriage coaching. Mm-hmm. We do one-on-one sessions. I do man-to-man sessions. You do woman-to-woman sessions. We talk with these people. And I think people are always wondering, well, how do we grow spiritually? How do we get closer to the Lord so that it will overflow into our marriage and it will overflow into our family? And then, they're asking about, how do we improve our communication? How do we, learn how to have conflict and handle conflict well? How do we increase our physical intimacy, and how do we grow closer emotionally? All those things. And they want to know how we do things. And so sometimes I'm like, well, I ask a lot of times with guys that I meet with, I'm like, hey, tell me what you're reading right now. Tell me what you're listening to right now. And most of the time, it's not anything.
Right.
We get a lot. How many people do we meet with where one spouse or the other or both say, well, we don't really read. Like, we know how to read, we just don't read.
Right.
And I get it.
Sure.
Some people just don't enjoy it, and they don't, and they
enjoy other things that we probably don't.
Yeah, exactly. But we also know the importance of reading, and we didn't always love reading either, but we kind of trained ourselves to do that, and we're always reading something that's helpful to us. And so then, I ask people all the time, who are some pastors that you like to listen to, or sermons? A lot of times they don't listen to anything. And I'm going, okay, well, these are the things that we have as a part of our daily life.
You have to be fed.
Just like you mentioned, we listen to these other sermons and pastors, and then we apply it. And so much of our application in this season of our life does go towards, how do we apply this to our marriage? Because this is what we're doing for other people and working with other people.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just say all that because some of you are out there going, how do we get there? Well, this really goes right into what we're about to talk about, right? You actually got to do something. You actually got to do something.
We didn't even plan that.
No, that was
God.
Even when I started talking about it, I was like, oh, I wasn't planning to talk about that. But I think that some of you may want to, if you just don't know where to start, like, reach out to us and send us a message on social media or through a contact form or whatever, and just say, hey, who are the pastors that you like to listen to? Like, what is it that you're listening to right now? What books are you reading right now? We're happy to share all that. Yeah. None of that's a secret. Yep. So here we go. Back to our regularly scheduled program. So Joshua is what Louis Giglio has been preaching on, and some of his teaching team. And the biggest thing is, he's just going through the whole entire book, but it's basically, it's the Israelites. And for those of you not Bible people, it's okay. We're not going to go real deep into this, but we do want to tell just kind of a couple of the stories to kind of set the stage. But the Israelites were being held captive. They were slaves, and they were slaves in Egypt. And the Israelites were, from the Bible, and these were God's chosen people.
Right.
And so they had been sent into slavery, sold into slavery, and they were living in Egypt. Well, that's when Moses comes along, and Moses God chooses him to be the leader to lead them out of Egypt. And he leads them out of Egypt, and there's all kinds of really cool story. So go back and read your Bibles. There's some really cool stories in there. But as they are journeying, so they that's when they cross the Red Sea. You guys have heard that story probably. Some of you have heard that. They cross the Red Sea. They escape from Pharaoh, and they escape from Egypt. And God promises to give them their land back. So it's the promised land. It's what he has told them. They're going to be able to go back and take over the land again. But before they go in there, they wander for 40 years. And during that time, God raises up another leader under Moses, and his name's Joshua. And that's where Joshua comes from. Well, through a series of events, we won't get into all that, but Joshua is the one that's chosen and is allowed to lead the people into actually the promised land. So after they're wandering for 40 years, they're given the opportunity to finally go into the promised land.
And it's called the promised land because it's the land God promised.
There you go.
As I learned today. I was today years old.
So they get a chance and an opportunity. And so what we want to talk about just a little bit today is how the people knew that the land was promised to them, but there was still work to be done in order to actually go and inhabit the promised land. Yeah. And so as we started thinking just about marriages and how, God's desire, his design for marriage is one man, one woman for life. And that's the covenant that we stand before God, stand before witnesses, and we say, we're going to stay together until the day that we die. Sickness and in health, richer for poor, till death do us part. And we promise to be faithful. We promise to, stick it out to the very end. And so we know that that's what God's desire and his design is. We're the ones that screw it up. It's not God. God doesn't screw it up. We screw it up. And when we go through our sinful lives and we mess things up, God still desires for us to have a long and fulfilling marriage. But just because he desires that and he wants that for us, and in a way he's promised that to us, but just because of that doesn't mean that it just automatically happens.
And naturally happens.
Right. And just like the promised land in the Bible, it didn't just happen. Yeah. Things had to take place in order for them to actually inhabit the land. So we wanted to kind of talk through that a little bit this morning. This is your story, so anytime you want to jump in.
Oh, I will.
Okay, so I just really, there's, for me, the first two stories in Joshua really paint this picture for us that we can sort of jump over and put it into our marriages. But the first one is that they had to cross the Jordan River. So this is not the Red Sea when they escaped Egypt, but this is crossing.
This was after the 40 years of wandering.
Right. So now they have to cross the Jordan River to actually go into the promised land for the first time. So as they're crossing, they actually have to get, these are like lots of people. It's not like a family of 15 trying to get across. We're talking millions of people.
Yeah. Yep.
And
it's not a river that you ride across a horse on.
Right.
It's a massive river.
So they had to get across it. And so they knew that God had promised that, but they had to take some steps of obedience. And the cool part of the story is he does part the waters, but he doesn't part the waters until the priests actually step in and lead the way. And so they actually step foot into the Jordan River before it dries up and parts the water. So walking across that, it actually took them being obedient and taking steps. It wasn't. God could have made a bridge across it. He could have, or he actually could have. We're talking about God. He could have literally picked them up and moved them to the other side of
them over.
Yeah. Yep. So there's lots of things that God could have done, but what he chose to do instead was allow them to exercise obedience and take steps of obedience and actually act on the promise before they actually got the opportunity to walk across on dry land.
Well, it's obedience, and then it's also faith, because it's like I'm going to have enough faith to where I know that if I take this step of obedience, God's going to bless it and God's going to honor it, because that's what he's promised. And so that's, there's so much of the story that's amazing, but that part of it just, you have to have enough faith to say, God, I know that you've promised us this. I know that this is your desire and your will. And so I'm going to take a step of obedience into that so that I can see your promises. But it takes action on our part, and not just because they could have stood at the edge of the Jordan River and said, okay, as soon as you dry it up, we'll walk across. But it was take a step. And then let me show you what I can do in your obedience. Let me show you my power in your obedience.
You know, the other thing that's interesting to me is when they went across, they knew, you know, you think about the promised land, and they had been told the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and it all sounds so great. But what they did before they actually crossed over is they sent some spies to go check things out. And they wanted them to come back and basically say, this is the greatest thing ever.
It's milk and honey. Just go.
Just like what God promised. So here, let's all go. But what happened is they went across, 12 of them went to spy the land, and only 2 of them came back and said, hey, we can do this. The other 10 said, don't go, because they actually said there are giants in the land. There are people there that are ready to kill us. And so even when they finally agreed and went with Joshua and Caleb across, they knew they were stepping into something that wasn't just all milk and honey.
That's right.
And it was going to be dangerous. It was going to be hard. And, you know, it wasn't like they were just walking into something that was completely prepared for them.
And easy.
Right. It wasn't easy. There were going to be difficult seasons ahead of them.
That's right.
And so, but they chose that. They chose to step in faith because they knew that God had promised them, and so that if they were obedient and they stepped in faith, that God was going to honor that, just like you said.
Yeah. So then as they go across the river, that in Scripture is where they stop and choose a stone, right? And they build an altar where they are just reminding themselves and reminding their children and their children's children of God's faithfulness. And this is where we stop and honor God and say, thank you for your faithfulness. And that's where our logo comes from. That's where our Stone Cairn logo comes from. It's rocks that are stacked upon other rocks to just show that this is God being faithful. He was faithful to us and allowed us to cross the Jordan River. And I just think that that's such a powerful picture of not only is God faithful, but he's also faithful when we step in and obey him, and he honors our obedience. And I just think that that's a really sweet picture of marriage. We've seen his faithfulness, Rusty. Like, we know that he's faithful when we obey, when we do what he's calling us to do, when we just, and some of it is taking chances and not being sure of your next step, but knowing that he's with you as you step. And I just love that picture of our story and the picture of what could be your story. These listeners that hear us every day that don't feel like there's much hope, or they don't feel like they have any faith to step out on. And I've heard you often tell people, you can borrow our hope. You can borrow our faith until you have some of your own, because we've seen it happen. We know that it can be done. We know your miracle that you desire can happen, because we know the God of miracles. And so as they stepped over the Jordan and into this next part of the story, it just took an unbelievable amount of faith and honoring God for his faithfulness to us.
Well, you think about just the majority of the people. This is not something that's unbiblical when we say borrow somebody else's, borrow our faith. Because really what it is that you're looking at somebody else and you're going, okay, well, you've seen the faithfulness of God. Maybe I haven't seen it as much as you have. And so I'm going to believe you and know that your God can come through for me as well.
Right.
And, when Joshua and Caleb came back, and the thing that you read through Joshua, you're gonna hear it said over and over, be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous. And so that's what Joshua came back preaching, was we got to be strong and courageous. And so even when they stepped into it, I think a lot of them, the majority of them were like, all right, well, we're going to have to borrow some of your faith, because there were 10 other dudes that came back and told us don't go.
Yeah.
And because we were going to get destroyed. And so they go across, they build the stone cairn and all that. And I believe that there were a lot of family members, that had seen they saw, they wandered for 40 years. So they saw what God had done at the Red Sea. And then their children had to believe, oh, well, you've lived this. So we can, and they had to borrow some of that as well. But then and this is kind of as deep into the story as we're going to get. But the very first, they cross, and it's not like all the people that were already inhabiting the land were like, hey, welcome,
Oh, it's yours now.
Yes, we're so glad to have you. God's been telling us that you were coming. And so now you can have our land. It didn't happen like that. And so, and it also didn't happen that they got there and everybody was just dead.
Yeah.
Because God just said, I'll go ahead and take care of it for you, and you don't even have to do anything. No, the very first place they encountered was Jericho, one of the most fortified cities in Israel. And so they had to actually go in and conquer. And so their thought was, now we got to fight.
Yeah.
And nobody, they didn't want to die. People, it's just all of that they had to be thinking through. And then I think the funny part of this is, okay, first one, and we're not going to battle, God says. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to get up. And he told them the number of days and how long to do it. And they walked around. They just walked around the city.
Just literally walked around the wall. The whole city was walled in. And he told them just to walk around it.
That's right.
And there had to be some people that were like, let's go. We're ready to fight. And Josh was like, no, we're going to walk. We're just going to walk around.
And some of them were probably like, well, I don't want to just walk around because people up there on the top of the wall
are
would be
looking down,
shooting, whatever.
Shooting like they had guns.
No, like arrows and stuff. How do you think they fought? They didn't just beat each other up. They definitely had ways that they were fighting. And so but guns, they weren't pulling out the 6-shooters. But there were all of these questions, but again, they just had to be obedient. And then for God to finally say, okay, well, when you're done with the whole walking thing, I just want you to yell really loud, and we're going to blow some trumpets, and those walls are just going to fall down. I don't know. They gotta be thinking at this point, what? There's some crazy people leading us.
Because he was telling Joshua, and Joshua was telling them. And so I'm sure they're like, okay, yeah, I don't think you're hearing that correctly.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the big thing here is that there is a promise for your marriage, but it takes action. You can't just expect that, okay, well, I'm just going to really pray about this. And God's just going to, when I wake up in the morning, things are going to be better.
The walls will have fallen.
Because God is going to hear my prayers. This is what he desires. This is what he wants. And I will say this, God can do it that way. But we're just telling you that from a couple that has gone through, and we're not just assuming that everybody knows our story, but we walked through infidelity 15 years ago. And almost 15 years ago. So in order to get to the place where we are today, we had to act on lots of things that we learned about marriage, and lots of ways and that's why we still continue to listen to sermons. We continue to read books. We continue to listen to other people, mentors and godly people that can guide us. And when they tell us things, we actually have to do them.
Right.
And I think that sometimes not sometimes. Yes, just sometimes.
Yes, sometimes.
Sometimes. I do believe that there's people that listen to us on this podcast, and they walk away, it makes them feel good, and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then they don't ever do anything that we've talked about. But the frustrating thing for us is when we actually start coaching couples and we work through some things, we talk through some things, And then the next week we get together. Hey, how are things going? Well, not really so great. Okay, well, tell us, how did things go when you tried this, what we talked about last week? Well, we just kind of decided that wasn't going to work for us, and so we didn't try it.
Oh.
Okay. So what do we? Well,
marching around the wall,
Yeah.
but we're asking you to
yeah,
do it.
and I'm just like, all right, well, here's the thing. It may not be right for you, but whatever you're doing is not working.
Right.
That's why you came to us and asked us for some advice and some coaching. And so our methods and the things that we did to heal might not be the thing for you.
But try it.
My goodness, try it. I mean, just try it.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes we listen to sermons, we listen to podcasts, we read books, we listen to other people, we get counsel, we get advice, and then we don't take steps to actually do anything about it.
Yep.
And that's the whole point of this with Joshua and the conquest of the promised land, was that, yes, God gave it to them. It was a gift. He gave it to them. But they actually had to go and take it.
Yep.
They had to go and actually conquer. And even after Jericho, it wasn't all.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big step of faith and massive obedience.
Right.
But it was easy. That was an easy win. I mean, it wasn't too hard just to walk around those walls and then blow trumpets and
Right.
walls
And they
come
fell
down.
down.
But that wasn't like that every time. Then they had to start fighting.
Yeah.
And they made all kinds of dumb mistakes along the way too, which cost them a lot of things. And one of the things that it cost them is that they never completely destroyed everybody there. And so it sort of left, like, there were pockets of places and people and different religions and things like that they left there. And those are the things that haunted them for generations and generations and generations, because they didn't completely destroy what was already in the land.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of marriage too, is that we don't completely destroy things. We just let them linger. So that's why you have bitterness and you have unforgiveness and little tiny things that you're not actually destroying and just putting to death. Speaking of, I'm going to go off on another little,
dear.
We're going off somewhere else real quick. But, with Easter having just come and gone, I've been reading some about the resurrection and just like historical stuff. And it's been interesting to me. I've listened to some podcasts and things like that. And I love studying things like that. And I get really excited about my faith and just the proof of my faith and stuff like that. But even over the last few weeks, we've been talking about resurrection at our church. We've been talking about end times and resurrection. But think about this for a second. When something is resurrected, what has happened to it in order for it to be resurrected?
It had to die.
It had to die, like completely dead. If something's not dead,
It can't be resurrected.
it can't be resurrected.
That's not the definition.
Right. And so we know that Jesus, he died. He
Right.
died for us. And so he was fully resurrected and came back to life. And I really believe that about our marriage. Our marriage was resurrected,
Sure it was.
but it was only resurrected because we allowed it to die. And I know that there's some people out there that are like, well, I don't really need my marriage to be resurrected. It's not really dead.
Yeah.
But there are parts of your marriage
That need to die.
and need to be resurrected and made new, because that's what resurrection is. It's making something new. And so for those of you out there that are, you're just letting things linger around, like the story of Joshua, you're letting things just kind of hang out. You're pushing them to the side. If you don't completely destroy them and let them die, there's no way that they can be resurrected into something new.
Yep.
And so I think it's just really important that we recognize that the death of things is what actually allows God to create something new.
That's
But
right.
until they die, they can't be made new again.
No. And the only thing that can make them new again is the power of Jesus. And and what he did for us and his promises and his faithfulness. And I know I said this a few weeks ago, some of you might remember, but I was listening to the Joshua series alongside of Matt Chandler's series, what he was walking through. And it was no coincidence that I finished one of the Joshua ones on my walk and went straight into Matt Chandler's for that week. And he was talking about the power of Jesus. And he said that some of us pray for the power of Jesus. Like, Lord, we need your power. I can hear that over, people praying that over their marriage. God, only your power can make this marriage, can save our marriage. Only your power can heal our marriage, all of these things. And he said, so many of us pray for the power of God, but then we don't live lives that require the power of God. And when you were talking about what we have to do, we have to go to battle for our marriages. We can't just sit back and say, okay, God, I know that your promise is that marriages, like, they're from you and they're supposed to be good and they're supposed to honor you and they're supposed to bring you glory. So do that. That's not it. It's, you can pray for that, but then you have to live a life that requires him to give you his power. So it's living life fighting. It's living life going to war daily for your marriage. It's just like we talked about a couple of weeks ago with the hashtag 24 hours. You're fighting for your marriage for that 24 hours. Don't get ahead of yourself. Invite Jesus in and say, today, I need your power to conquer this battle, to conquer this one. And I've seen your faithfulness and I know your faithfulness, or maybe I don't see it, but I see Rusty and Heather's, and I'm going to borrow some of their faith to live through this day. And so it's just, it's so much easier, Rusty, I think, for us to talk about this because we've witnessed, we have seen firsthand his redemption and his power and the miracle that he can work. And so I just want to give other people, all of these listeners, a glimpse of that. It's not always easy for us. I mean, there's hard things that we still battle, not just in our marriage, but in our life. But it's always coming back to, I know who my God is. I know what he promises, and I know his power. And so I'm going to rest in that, and I'm going to take the first step of faith in that.
That's good. All right. It's a great way to end.
Yeah, we went just a couple of minutes long. Not bad at all. We crushed it.
People love us to go long. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.